So this is a continuation of Excel review for Chapter 7, summarizing data with pivot tables in Excel, and we are on number 13 here for Part 2. So number 13, at this point we would be in the report worksheet, which is what I've got open here. So be sure that you are in the proper worksheet here, the report worksheet. And we are going to click on cell E12, so where these row labels are. We're going to click up here on E12 so that we are in this first pivot table. The instructions tell us to add slicers for the photo and coupon fields. So we're going to be creating 2 slicers. We've done this before with tables, but we can do it also with pivot tables. So it's under the Analyze tab and Insert Slicer. There's also a timeline that you can insert, which we'll be doing later on. So here's Insert Slicer. We're going to create 2 slicers, one for photo, one for coupon. Since we like those columns a lot, we keep using them. We'll hit OK, and we'll have 2 little slicers here. They're going to have us to reposition these slicers, so we're going to have to scroll up. And we're going to make each of them have 2 columns. So when you're clicked on your slicers, there's an Options tab. Let's go ahead and just go ahead real quick, set these both to 2 columns so they look right. And then we're going to move them. This first one, photo, is going to cover B4. So again, scroll all the way over so you're all the way where you need to be. So B4 is where it's going to start, and C6 is where that's going to end. So B4 to C6. Something like that. Remember, don't go past the edges of the cell. And then the other one's going to go below it. This is going to be B8 to C11. So C11 here on this one. All right. So there we go, B8 to C11 for that. We've got both of them set to 2 columns, so they look like this. We're going to set the report connections for these. So again, when you're on your slicer, there's this little button called Report Connections. Right now, it's only connected to this one, the day pivot table. The instructions tell us to connect it to all of them. So we're going to check all of these so that whenever we use this pivot table, it's going to filter all of those to whatever we click on. Same thing with this one. We'll report connections. We'll check all of these. So if we were to click no photo, you'll see every bit of data is updated here in any of those pivot tables that use that. Okay, I'll remove that filter. Okay, next it says we're going to click cell E12. So we're going back in here again, and we're going to insert a timeline. So under pivot table tools, Analyze, it's right next to Slicer, Insert Timeline. You can only do timelines with date columns, so it automatically knew that we would use date. And then we're going to just quickly resize this one. So this is going to go in E4. So E4 to L10 for this one. And you'll have to scroll over to see the beginning of the timeline because it doesn't quite all fit in there. And then it says we're going to set the report connections on this one also. So your timeline tools options has a report connections. Now we're not doing everything on this one. It says we're going to connect to the engaged pivot, the day pivot, and the size pivot. So those are the only 3. So not the history one. We'll go ahead and hit OK here. All right, now they're going to have us to actually utilize this data or the timeline and the slicers. So we're going to go to the slicers to filter the report worksheet to show only social media posts that involve photos and coupons that were posted in December of 2021. So we're using all of these. So we want photos, and we want coupons, and we want December. We got to scroll over. And there's December 2021. I believe that's what it says on here. So only social media posts that involve photos and coupons and were posted in December 2021. So we are filtering for all of those things. You'll see it says December 2021 here. And then all of this data that we see here connected to these tables, not the charts necessarily, but the tables will be connected to those. So there were no very long posts for any of those, for example, on that one. Okay, number 16 talks about drilling down data. Okay, they use the term drilling down data. And what you do is you're going to look at the posts that match a condition by drilling down in the pivot table and double clicking on a specific cell. They have us to click on G20. What they're doing is they're saying, all right, we're going to double click this to drill down the data to find out what records are giving us this engagement rate of 2.1%. So to drill down data, you double click and it's going to open in its own tab. Watch this. Bam. So these are all of the ones that were included. So photo, coupon, and you can't see it, but that the December is in here. The date is not big enough for us to see. We're going to fix all that. So it does say resize the column width, so all the data is visible. So you'll go left to right here and double click all these. I think all of them are good except for these first two. There we go. So we can see these are all December of 2021. They're all the coupon. They're all the photo. That's the ones that we're using, that we were getting when we filtered with the slicer and the timeline. So let's double click this sheet. It has us to give it a name called drilled data. And then it has us to move it after media posts. So that goes right there. So when you're finished with all of this, you're going to have your documentation. It's got your name and date. You're going to have the report, which is going to have your 2 slicers and 2 columns, your timeline. You're going to have all of this data here. Remember, we used COUNTIF functions to count the proper things here on the Facebook post. And then for the average engagement rates for those, we used an average if. And then we have these 2 pivot tables and these 2 pivot charts. Under media posts, this is where we just had the table, and the only thing we really did on this one was we set that post size vertical lookup using a VLOOKUP, and it looked up based on these lookup tables. We completed the lookup table using the criteria that was given to us there. Here's our drilled down data based on double clicking that on the initial report here. We double clicked on that G20 to create that drilled down data showing us that filtered data that met the requirements that gave us that. And so, you know, that's the basic gist of this Module 7. There is a lot to Module 7, but just remember that you've got lots of options when it comes to these pivot tables. So as a reminder, when you're in a pivot table, if you go up here and show your field list, you can move things around all you want. So you know, if you just want to look at data yourself and figure out, like, I want to know how many clicks are on Wednesday, you know, whatever. I mean, you can pull the day in, you can pull the clicks in, you can filter it under filters for the day of the week that you want, and then choose that you only want Wednesdays, and you would get that information. Or you can have multiple filters like we did with these 2 slicers here. So there's a lot of options. Businesses are really big about using pivot tables and pivot charts. It's a really, really popular thing in the business world. And one of those things for the dual college credit, they want to make sure that you know very well. So, all right, lots of stuff to think about. Good luck continuing on with your projects here in Excel 7.